Hey guys, sorry for the poor sound quality in this one. I know the room's a little echoey and the humming in the background's a little annoying. But if you can just bear with me on this one, I promise it'll get better in the future. If you can't bear it, I hope you come back in the future to one of my other videos. It'll get sorted out. Enjoy the video. The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose in the mountains of mist. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time. But it was a beginning. That is the introduction that you hear at the beginning of every book in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. It's a beautiful introduction. I have chills again reading it, and I had chills every time reading it, probably since about book 3. Book 1, it was kind of a cool intro, but man, it's every time I heard it after a couple of books, you have cold chills for minutes following. It's amazing. That is a great intro. Bravo, Robert Jordan. So as you can I'm sure you can guess from the video title, I am creating this video to document my feelings after finishing the Wheel of Time. I tried to do this video yesterday, but I found myself too emotionally taxed. After finishing the series, I felt like I had lost a body part, or a close friend. There was times that I cried during the last chapter, and we'll talk about those. And I found myself when I was recording the video, I couldn't keep my thoughts together. I was getting too teary-eyed. So I decided just to wait a day. I recorded my thoughts yesterday so I could try to keep some of that emotion. I wanted a little more polish, even if this is an unpolished video. So first things first, this isn't a spoiler-free video. So if you plan on reading this in the future, come back after you read it. If you're reading this now, come back after you finish. If I catch you before book 10, I do want to leave. I heard a piece of advice that I wish I would have followed. Go find a video for book 10, or go read a chapter by chapter summary of book 10. That, in my opinion, was the low point of the series. And if I'm gonna recommend this book to any of my friends, family, or people on the internet, that's the advice that I've got to give with it. I'm 100% a completionist. I've got to read every word in the series. At least that's how I felt. But I really wish I would have skipped book 10. It's like part 1 of book 11, but it's like 20 some odd hours on Audible. It just was too much for nothing to happen. I might appreciate it more in a reread, but I just didn't like it. But anyways, come back later after you finished it. So what's foremost on my mind when talking about the finale of Wheel of Time is Egwene's death. And I'm really curious how you felt at the end of when you finished the Wheel of Time. And if you just finished it a couple hours ago, if you just finished it 7 years ago, or any time in between, I'm really curious how you felt. What death was the hardest for you to take? What deaths annoyed you? What did you feel? Because in my opinion, I feel like Egwene's death is going to be one of the most, and I could be way off base, but it could be one of the most widely held. She's like the only main character that died. You have Swan and Gareth Bryn that died, and that was kind of hard. But when Egwene passed, first of all, it was poetry. The way she went, I don't know, it was beautiful to me. And I guess we'll just get into that. But if you don't remember, Egwene's the Amerlin seat. She has her warder Gawain, who's very human. He has the Shan-Chan rings that make him fast, but they also kill you. He puts them on and goes to fight Demon Dread. I didn't know what to expect going into it. I really thought Gawain would kill Demon Dread at the expense of his own life. I expected it to be one for one. It would be hard to, I mean, Gawain still dies. But just having him die without even wounding Demon Dread, without really making him break a sweat. He says, so you're a good fighter, but then says, but you're wasting my time, so goodbye. That was rough. The death was very Gawain-esque. It was very human, and I appreciate that. I like good human writing. But it was rough. And then you cut to Egwene, who lets out a scream, a scream in agony, and then lights, I think the book says she puts a wall of fire, or she attacks the Sharans with a wall of fire. I mean, you can tell, she's just, it was painful. And then her keeper, I don't remember what her name is, she has to take her away and put her down. I mean, that was just, it was really painful. And you never really get to experience that earlier in the book, I feel like. There's people who lose their warders, but they're not first characters. Even Lan, the other side of the coin, he's really, he despairs, but he's got his mission. Swan, when she loses her warder, she has a really strong mission. I mean, Egwene does too, but the agony that she feels, you never get to really experience in first person. So I found that really, really powerful and really painful. I love that she brought herself back up. I love the way she did it. You knew it was going to happen. You knew it had to happen. She says the Amerlin seat. I'm the Amerlin seat. I can't afford to feel pain. Egwene's Sedai can feel, or Egwene Alvir can feel pain, but the Amerlin seat expects her to get up and continue on. There's too much to do, and it was just it was a beautiful scene. And then she goes back out to the battlefield, and she starts fighting, and the Black Tower, Mahale comes, starts shooting balefire everywhere. And I thought it was so, you saw her use the reverse of balefire earlier, which was great foreshadowing. I knew it was going to happen when that fight started. I knew that she was going to start, I figured that she was going to start using the reverse of balefire, and she did. It was awesome to see, but I didn't expect her to die. I didn't want her to die. I thought she was too young. She was making all these beautiful sweeping changes. Wise Ones, Aes Sedai and Othan Mier, and then hopefully Shan-Chan in the future, we're going to start working together. And I wanted her to orchestrate that. I wanted the epilogue to be 100 years in the future, whatever happens to the Dragon Reborn. But I wanted to see Egwene reigning supreme. Reigning supreme, that's probably a strong term, but I wanted to see her orchestrating all these changes, and I wanted to see the good things happening, and it really made me sad I didn't get to. It's okay. It was a good writing makes you feel, and I certainly felt Egwene's death. So it's, you win some, you lose some. But I just thought it was so, the way I read it, and I think I read pretty far into things, but Robert Jordan's a really good writer. I wouldn't put it past him, and Brandon Sanderson as well. I wouldn't put it past them planning this. But she was trapped by the Shan-Chen. She couldn't channel unless she was told to. And I kind of felt it was kind of similar to Rand being in a box. You lose it and you're never going to lose it again. And I thought there's no way, because Kate Redding says she draws in so much of the power, if she lets it go, she'll never hold the power again. And I thought to myself, she can't, she's not walking out of here. She just won't. Maybe, but I just, my thoughts went back to the Shan-Chen, and I'm like, I don't want an Egwene who's not the Amerlin seat. And you can heal stilling, and you can heal gentling. We know that now. Nynaeve is fantastic. But what I picture, and I don't know if this is canon or not, if this is really the way it works. But you have like a vessel of something, like a chalice, let's say, and you can put the one power in there, and when you're stilled, you basically put a lid on that cup, and so you can just remove that lid. It takes a lot of skill, and Nynaeve is the person who can do it, or she can show the people how to do it, which is really cool. But when I think of burning yourself out, you're scraping out, you're removing the chalice altogether, which is painful. I thought it was, that's how I view it. So I don't think it can. I don't think that can be healed. Maybe it can. Maybe she heals someone who's burnt out, and I'm totally blowing smoke. But that's how I pictured it. So, but that death, I mean, I when I was reading that scene, I was listening to it in my ears. I was laying in bed, and I read and I listened to the series. I read some parts of it, listened to others. I wanted to listen to the last battle because I just liked it being read to me. It let me be a little more in the moment. But I was laying in bed trying to fall asleep, or in preparation for falling asleep, and I was clenched, white knuckling the air, I guess. Tears forming in my eyes, sweating a little bit. My hands were all clammy, and I was just, every step of the way every step towards Egwene's her death, I just was like, no. But I also had chills. It was so awesome. So I just thought, and this is really the way the whole ending went. I thought it was also poetic, and like I said with Egwene's death, the way that she wasn't gonna go back to being a regular person. She wasn't gonna go back to the bonds of never holding Saidar again, or Saidin. I don't remember which side is whose. That was just poetic to me. I just thought it was awesome. And when Kate Redding read to me that she was wielding the flame of Tarvalin, the opposite of Balefire. Oh man, the chills. It was so cool. I just loved it. And if Egwene's gonna die, that's gotta be the way. It was just amazing. Then we go on to Swan's death, which was also really hard for me. It was kind of just thrown in there. It was, you turned around and Swan was dead. But I think what was hard for me is you knew at that exact same moment Garth Bryn was going crazy. You knew he would. And that the book even said, and I really like Garth Bryn. He's one of my favorite characters. And Swan, she just really helps Egwene. But when she walks in and when Swan initially walks in and Min says, why aren't you with Garth Bryn? One of you is gonna die. And I don't know. I was like, okay, but they're just together. They're just apart for a second. It'll be okay. And it wasn't, and that was just hard for me. Still awesome. I love that you follow through. That the pattern is the pattern. Can't change it. It's just, unless you're Ta'Veren. You just, and even then, are you really changing it, or is it just going the same path that you was going to go before because that's the way that the Ta'Veren was going to go? It was just really interesting. I gotta look at my notes. After that, Galad going to fight Demon Dread was a really cool beat, I thought. He finds Gawain. He thinks he's dead. He wakes up and says, he's got the water bond and he's got his rings on, so he's extra strong. So he lives through what a man shouldn't live through. And he says, Galad, I'm stupid. I'm a fool. Tell Egwene I love her. Demon Dread killed me. And this is after Matt telling Galad, go do the right thing. Here's my amulet that doesn't let you get hurt by the White Tower, or by the power. Go and kill as many channelers as you can. And you just know Galad's gonna go do it. And I was under the impression that Gawain was a better fighter than Galad. So when Galad does as well as he does. I'm not saying, I mean, maybe I read it wrong earlier in the book, but I remember hearing that Gowan was fighting Garth, and Garth says, "Wow, you're better than Galad." And maybe Galad's gotten much better between now and then too, or then and now too. But when they're fighting and he bloodies Demon Dread, I was really surprised. It was cool, and then he pops the muscle in his bicep, gets his arm chopped off, and then I thought he got his head lopped off as well when the sword came in. I thought he was totally dead, and that was also really hard. I'm like, and then I was waiting for Elaine to die after that. Because I was like, okay, so Gowan, Galad, when does Elaine die? I just kind of thought that was, in the sense of, poetry. I just felt like that entire line would die. I don't know how that's poetic, but I just thought it would. I thought it made sense at the time. Glad it didn't. Especially when they were starting to take the babies out, and the guy wanted to keep Elaine, or maybe not die, but be taken for that guy, and then maybe jumped into the nothingness. I don't know what would happen. Something terrible. So I really didn't like the sexist deaths thing on Rand's part. All the main three feel this way, where you can kill men, you can't kill women. Matt doesn't like killing anyone. His philosophy is, I don't want to kill you, but if you're going to kill me, I'd rather you die. But where Rand is so strongly opposed to killing women, I felt like it was pretty sexist in a book that flipped a lot of the gender roles. I was kind of surprised. But then I came upon a story. It was sometime during the series. I don't remember when, but Robert Jordan fought in Vietnam, as I'm sure most of you know, and he was fighting the Viet Cong, and they were getting shot at, and he was shooting back, and he was aiming at people and shooting them, and he aimed at somebody, shot, went to shoot the next person, and then realized that he had just shot a woman. And I must have been pretty traumatizing for him. So after I read that, it must have been during the slog. I think I was looking for reasons to keep reading. And I was like, why should I keep reading? Should I finish the series? And I came across that story. And it made it a lot easier for me to bear. Because it became personal to Robert Jordan then, which I don't know what's cool about that, but it's really cool. I like when people write their trauma or write in a good tasteful way. I like when people write their trauma or write themselves. It was just really cool. So that's just an aside. I just wanted to share that. Rand seeing everybody die as he's fighting the Dark One was painful. You're already really emotionally vulnerable. At least I was as I was reading this. You'd already seen Egwene die. You'd seen a couple other people die. I remember when I was earlier in the day, I was reading this, and we were cleaning the house or something, and I was looking over at my wife, and I would just say 3, because I was counting off the number of main characters, semi-main characters who were dying, and 3, look over 4, 5, 6, as more and more people died, and so you just become emotionally vulnerable, and then having to relive those with Rand, knowing that he has a hero complex. He takes all of these on himself. Was it was hard to bear, but it was also, I mean this is what you need. He is the fight with the Dark One is just kind of is stagnating, and I thought it was fuel. Rand was the pattern was basically feeding him fuel to beat the Dark One. And for the record, I really thought he was going to kill the Dark One. I thought the reason that we're reading this book series is because this is the pattern. This is the time it was different. He killed the Dark One this time, so it worked out. I didn't know what was gonna. I remember thinking at one point, you need the Dark One to have choice, but I thought, the Dragon Reborn, just I had never considered, and I guess we'll just get into that part right now. I'd never considered that you need the Dark One. You can't not have him. I just thought there would be something that there would be a vacuum and something else would fill the void, and it would be better, hopefully. Maybe the Dragon Reborn could take the Dark One's spot and still give some opposition, but not be the Dark One. But in classic Robert Jordan fashion, you have the two Saw, the yin yang sign basically. There's always a balance. There's good and there's evil. And there always is, in perpetuity. Which I thought was, I mean, it just is, I keep using the word poetic, and I thought it was poetic. I really did. I can see why this book is on the PBS Great Reads. It is, I am not qualified to say this, but I'm saying it anyways. I just felt like it was a great moment. I was witnessing greatness in literary history, or in literature. It was awesome. And then I also loved that Rand realized you had to have choice. And it wasn't until Rand started choosing and Matt started choosing, and Rand and Matt started choosing, that you could really, the last battle ensued and you could win, right? Matt used to just say, I'm not going to be part of this battle. Hey, Rand, I'm dipping out of here. And Rand was like, sure you are. Good luck. And he would try to leave. And the pattern would take him to battle after battle after battle, and he would win those battles, and Matt kept saying, that's the last one. You can't get me this time. But once he chooses to embrace his luck, embrace his destiny, I guess, that's when things, and the ball starts rolling so fast after that. Same with Rand. I love poetry. I love this. The book 6 is called The Lord of Chaos. And the Lord of Chaos, your first instinct is to say that the Lord of Chaos is the Dark One. And it is. But Rand also becomes his own Lord of Chaos, right? Moraine dies at the end of book 5, which was also, that was hard. And he starts descending a very slippery slope into madness and just like evil. You know, he says, I am the Dragon Reborn. It's my job to die for all of you, and that's all I'm going to give you. So let's go. I'm going to leave your city starving. It doesn't matter the cost. I'm walking to Shale Ghul, and I'm going to die for you. So be grateful. Come on. And which was really dark Rand. I really liked those books. I liked seeing dark Rand. But it was so nice. The rebirth. The dragon's rebirth. You know, the dragon before book 12 is the dragon, in my headcanon. After book 12, or I think it's the end of book 11, after the dragon's rebirth, where, I guess, some context, Cadsuane is trying to make him happy. She says that she knows she needs to make him happy. Or her job is to make him laugh again. And I didn't know how she was going to do that, because she hated him. He hated her so much. I hate Aes Sedai in general. But then Tam comes along. Cadsuane gets Tam. And it was so in character for Rand to lose his mind after he learns that Tam is there on the Aes Sedai's command, his wishes, their wishes. It's not that, I mean, you can ask somebody to come. You can ask me to go visit my wife, and I'll go do it, and it won't be because you asked me to. In part, but I also love my wife. I don't mind going to see my wife or my parents or my siblings, whatever. But he loses his mind. And before that, he's not even letting Tam. He has to be hard as a rock. He's not even letting Tam call him Rand. He makes Tam. I think he's so. Anyways, he makes him call him the dragon, and he calls Tam Althor, because Tam's his father. He acknowledges that in his mind, but he won't. I think he's trying to save Tam in some sense. If I don't let you feel like I really love you, you won't feel as much pain. And also he needs to be hard to save the world. Which really, that happens after Min almost dies at the hands of Rand, right? He really, really, really tries to just lock himself in. And I loved, that was some really, really good character building. I really, really enjoyed those books. It was hard to read. You didn't like seeing your, well, okay, I kind of liked it, but you still, it's not Rand's like ultimate form, so to speak. So it was, you're like, just hoping it gets better. So after his rebirth, it was just, I mean, he's choosing now to get back to the choosing, the poetry of it all, of what I like to call poetry anyways. He's choosing now to be the person he's supposed to be. He's not being dragged along by the pattern. He's not being dragged to Shale Ghul to kill the Dark One. He's now choosing to go there. He's choosing, he's giving people choices too. He says, hey, this is my order, is me asking you, hey, will you go do this? And it's just so poetic, you know. It's beautiful. I just love the poetry of it all. It's and then the Tam, when in the last battle, when he charges the Trollocs, they get in formation with the Two Rivers men and they charge, and it suddenly whips back to the past with snow pelting his face, and he's on Dragonmount again. And it began on Dragonmount and it ended on Dragonmount, and I'm sure that's just good writing. There's probably a technique that, like, it's probably a named technique, but I just thought it was beautiful, and it never ceases to impress me. It never ceases to, I just like it every time I hear something like that, you know. It was a really cool beat of the story. Looking at my notes, Matt was by far my favorite character in the series. I think maybe Rand has cooler moments. Same with Perrin. Perrin has some really, really cool moments. But Matt as a whole, I mean, who doesn't like the comedic relief? And Matt certainly is that. But also he's just so he's so goofy. He's still a child at heart. He doesn't want anything to do with this. He just wants to go back. He has this infatuation with boots, which is just so funny. All the time, you know, he's explaining himself, I think, to Talmanis. And he says, you know, he's explaining something. He says, it's like boots. Or being a nobleman is like boots. He's explaining it to an Aes Sedai. It's analogous to boots. And I just thought it was so funny. And the whole way through, when he is stumbling his way from battle to battle and winning those battles, the way he asked the Aelfin his questions, it was just all so natural. He was just such a great character, my favorite. And I'm curious to know who your favorite character was too, and if it's not Matt, why? and I'm really curious if your least favorite character was Matt, and why. He's such a good character in my mind, and you're more than welcome to disagree, and I welcome that discussion. We had talked about this, but Rand's arc in whole was amazing. You know, starting out as a farm boy. I've always loved Lan, but you know, Lan takes him under his wing. That was really cool. And then he kind of goes out on his own. He goes to the Aiel next. Is that where? I don't remember where Rand's arc goes, but we got to talk about his arc where he goes from good to evil to good again. But I just love his arc. Reading the end of the story, the epilogue, the end of the story, the epilogue. He was. I just felt so nostalgic for his story again. I don't know if nostalgic is the right word, but I think it conveys what I'm trying to say. I just immediately wanted to read the whole thing over again. And if I didn't have such a long TBR, I probably would. And I think here in the coming weeks, I'll read books 11, 12, and 13 again. Maybe book 1 and 2. Maybe I'll read the whole series. I don't know. Maybe it'll be like my bedside book, and I'll read it over the course of the next couple of years or something. But I just felt nostalgic for the whole series immediately. It wasn't like I woke up a month later and said, I want to read this again. No, it was during the epilogue. I just wanted to experience it all over again. And it's a common feeling. I felt that way when the first fantasy series I ever read was Inheritance. And I felt that way at the end of Inheritance. But I felt it so much more in Wheel of Time. And I think part of that is because it's kind of painful to get through the series. It's like it's just painful, you know. Anything that's hard to do is worth the only things that are worth doing in life are hard. And reading the Wheel of Time, it's not physically hard, but it's hard. It's a hard series to get through. How many people read up to book 7 or read books 1 and 2 and they just are like, it's so daunting, or the slog is too much. It's really rewarding to get to the end, and you want to just experience it all over again. Which, speaking of the slog, I think if I were to recommend the book series to anyone, which I do, I think it's a great book series, but to my friends, my family, or people on the internet, I think that I have to recommend skipping book 10. Probably read it on the reread. Unless you're a completionist like I am. I needed to read every word of The Wheel of Time or listen to it. I wish I would have skipped book 10. Time's becoming more minute. You're spending more and more time in one spot, which is okay, but it's not okay when nothing happens. Book 10 is basically just a giant book of character development. And really, I don't even know how much character development happens. I think it would be better on the reread because you have the whole picture now. So, but on your first read, I think go find a chapter by chapter summary or watch somebody's video, which I plan on doing at book summaries for this exact reason. I want people to be able to say, I read the first 7 books and I want to come back to the series. I don't want to read them all again, or I want to skip book 8, 9, and 10, or whatever your reasoning is. But I had a hard time reading that. I almost quit. Or took a long hiatus. I would have come back, but I just had a hard time. So that's my 2 cents on the slog. But I also think that the books before that aren't as bad as what people make them sound. Crown of Thorns was kind of boring, but 8 and 9 I think I remember liking quite a bit. 9's ending was really good, and I felt like 8's ending was pretty good. So I honestly didn't really have a problem with those books. I think that calling it a slog might be a disservice to the new reader. I was very cognizant of feeling like I should be bored now. This is the slog. It should suck. Why are you enjoying yourself? So I think that's just a disservice to new readers. Moraine's Resurrection, which you knew it was coming. There was some doubt in my head because I thought maybe Min's viewings of her greatness still to come was her greatness manifesting itself through Rand. She did all this work for Rand to do amazing things, and Egwene, mostly Rand though, and it's just going to come out in Rand. So, there was a small, probably like a 20% chance that in my mind that I was like, she won't come back, but I was pretty sure she was coming back. But I was so happy when she did. You were getting a long lost friend back. She's very changed. She seems much more reserved now. Maybe she just knows Rand better, but I'm sure also being tortured for a year or however long she was dead for, or captured by the Aelfinn for, changed her. She's much more reserved talking to Rand. She still puts her foot down and says this is not a good idea, and she's proven correct by some things that Rand does. I don't remember what exactly. I remember Moraine, and I was annoyed as a reader, like Moraine's back. Like, I love you, Moraine, but like the Aes Sedai that can hold on to Rand are back because he's like, okay, you're right, I'll listen to you. So it was bittersweet, I guess. Though I think the coolest thing for me about the Wheel of Time was how authentic the world felt. Everybody, this is just good writing, but everybody did, for the most part. I'm sure you can find examples where they didn't, but I felt like people did what they would do. They acted how they would act. Matt was always goofy but ended up falling in love and doing things for love, and also doing his duty. Perrin's always about, he's Mr. Duty himself, and Rand. He's doing his duty, and which really is a theme of this book. I think is doing your duty, which is a beautiful thing. It's just at least the way it's way it's handled, anyways. It's the same with Lord of the Rings, right? You have Frodo he does his duty. He gets to Rivendell. He's done his duty, and yet there's no one suited to take the ring the rest of the way, and so he continues to do his duty. And Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli, Boromir, Faramir. I mean, there's just a whole host of characters that just do their duty. And Robert Jordan said I heard this in an interview after the Audible narration, like after every book, there's a Robert Jordan interview, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard it, where he says he set out to create a world that was like Lord of the Rings, but colored by self-interest, because Lord of the Rings is very idyllic, and Wheel of Time, in some senses, is idyllic, but it's really you have dark friends, people who like Varen, who she says that that the self-interest was to be a spy. But then you have people in one of the earlier books, one of the captains is a dark friend, and it was in the two rivers, I think, and Perrin says, well, go die then, like go kill yourself, basically. It was in a nicer way, but go put yourself in the front lines, and I'm sorry that you were a dark friend. And the guy was like, I'm sorry I was a dark friend too, basically. And so it's colored by self-interest, and I just thought that was so cool. You have the Chosen who just are clawing at each other constantly, and it makes sense why they're evil. I mean, because it's self-interest. The chick who kills Moiraine, the Chosen one who kills Moiraine, Lanfear, I mean, at the end of the book, you think she's changed. You know in your heart of hearts she's not. She is the Forsaken. She's one of the Forsaken, one of the Chosen. You know she's not changed, but she talks Perrin, she talks a big game. I don't want to be here anymore. Perrin, help me. And then in the end, she says, hey, let's kill them and let's make Rand bow to us. And I don't know, it just was so... the self-interest, it was really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. Which, around the Lanfear time, you have Podon Fane come back. And Matt killing Podon Fane, I was okay with it. I liked the way he did it. You have the disease that you're immune to. It makes sense. But I really wish that Perrin would have gotten his revenge. That is the most brutal thing that happens up to that point. There are some really painful things to read, I think, relative to the series that happen after that. But that is the way Perrin's family die, and then how Podon Fane acts about it afterwards. They called me crazy. This is what happens. This is what happens to crazy people, as he walks around scratching himself and giggling to himself. It was a little disturbing. It was awesome. So I just wanted Perrin to get his revenge, but he didn't, and I'm just gonna have to be okay with that. I'm not great at the ending a YouTube video thing. I hope that you'll stick around. I hope that you'll keep your eyes out. I want to put out some regular content. Liking the video, subscribing, and it's just basically like cheering me on. I have a lot I want to say about literature, about books, about I have a lot to say, and I think that YouTube's a great way to get that out. And if you want to hear, stick around. So anyways, that's the end of this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's not the end of all videos, but the end of this video is certainly an ending.